Big 550 KTRS. This hour is presented by Affordable Kitchens and Baths. Visit them today at affordablekitchensandbaths.net.
Hey, coming up here in April, Election Day, you're going to be asked, people who live in the city and the county of St. Louis are going to be asked to vote on an arch tax, and Deb Peterson is here to talk about the editorial board and their four-part series on the arch tax. Good morning, Deb Peterson.
Good morning, McGraw Milhaven.
It's good to hear your voice.
Good to hear your voice, and it will be really good to see you in the Cottleville Parade.
Oh, are you going to be out there? I guess not.
Are you Irish?
Am I, with a name like McGraw, am I Irish?
Excuse me, with a name like Milhaven. I don't think that's Irish.
Well, no, they don't know where that actually came
German
from.
part of the heritage?
There's some German and Swedish in there somewhere, but no, we only really claim the Irish. My great-grandmother came over on the boat.
Did she?
Yeah, from County Cork.
I bet you tell that to everybody who asked you to be in their parade.
Very few people asked me to be in their parade.
Well, that ought to be fun. Are you going to wear a potato costume or anything fun? Shamrock?
I've got a nice derby that I got in Dingle while we were in Ireland. I have a...
You're wearing your Dingle derby?
I'm wearing my Dingle derby. I have a...
I thought you wore that all the time.
I have a nice four-leaf clover tie that I will be wearing.
Exciting.
And what else do I need to know? What else? And green beer.
Nothing.
It's perfect.
That's probably enough for the listening public.
There you go.
So we want to talk about the arch tax?
Yes, because you, sitting on the editorial board, have done extensive research on this.
Yes, we have been researching this for a while, have actually read books, delved into the real history of the arch, which is fascinating in that, plans for the arch were talked about in the 30s.
Right.
It was built in 65. Was not plans for the arch, plans for a Jefferson Expansion Memorial Monument. And so when it was built and the last piece put into place in 1965, it had taken years of political and all kinds of wrangling to get it done. And the Post-Dispatch won a Pulitzer Prize in that era related to the voter fraud that was used to, I think, for a tax for the arch.
Hold on a second. There was voter fraud for raising money for the arch originally?
Yes. I think there were 75, I'm going to get my numbers wrong, 75, could that be right, 1,000 voters on the rolls, and there were not that many voters in the city. So, there was a lot of fraud, and not now. I mean, we're going back,
right.
60 years.
But obviously the people jerry-rigged the voting so that the tax would pass.
Yes. So this time around, people are going to be asked to approve a 3/16 cent sales tax. People in St. Louis City and County.
Right.
Which will be used 40% for county and city parks, 30% for Great Rivers Greenway, and 30% for the arch. So it is kind of there's a lot of work that will be accomplished with this small tax, which adds up to about 2 cents on every $10 purchase.
Okay.
However, you want to make sure, no matter what the amount is, that this money is going to be spent in the way that the public believes it's going to be spent. We've had a bad experience over the past couple of years with both the Science Center and then the History Museum in the Zoo Museum Cultural District.
Right.
So this is it's structured totally differently. No money will go to any private hands. There won't be any board of trustees that will be, handling the money. The money even the money for the arch portion, which is being done by City Arch River Foundation, which is a private 501(c) headed by Walter Metcalf, and that involves, some people around town, Danny Ludman and Deborah Patterson, and, a cast of characters of that sort. I don't mean characters, but, people.
Right, yeah.
They will not directly ever handle the money. That money will go through Great Rivers Greenway, which is appointed by the city and county and St. Charles County, even though they're not going to be involved in the arch portion. But that board is composed of people who have all been appointed. So voters will have say. If they don't like the way the money's being spent, they can, in the proverbial, kick those guys out of office, get to their
Right.
county or city executives and let them know. So they've really worked hard, I believe, the group, to ensure that things will be done the way people want them done. And what will be done is pretty darn extensive. I mean, the idea of having an arch an arch grounds that you can walk to, that you could sit there maybe, half a day, maybe a full day, have a picnic, enjoy the grounds, look at the river, see kids running around, is really, it doesn't happen.
Well, it's tragic that, as Senator Danforth says, that the arch is virtually cut off from downtown because of that depressed section of Highway 70.
So, a lot of fuss has been made about getting rid of the highways. This plan it puts a park over the highway. It spans the depressed lanes. There are still people, Shane Cohn, an alderman has been one of them, who say, get rid of the highway. This seems to me to be a very feasible alternative. You will start at Keener Plaza. You will be able to walk through this beautiful grassy esplanade over the road. You won't even know the road's there. It'll be, there'll be sound baffling. It looks like a good design. You know what? Is it perfect? Maybe not. Maybe we should get rid of the depressed lanes. We can't at this point. And we have money from the feds, which, according to Tom Bradley, who's the superintendent of the expansion memorial, of the arch grounds, I guess for lack of, that's the shorthand.
Right.
He says, this won't happen again in the park services lifetime, and that they are now much more oriented toward emergency projects, fixing things that are broken, not beautifying or enriching what they already have. So that 91 acres is owned by the Park Service, and it's a collaboration of the Park Service, the city, the state, all of the entities that will make this happen. So I think that, we've concluded we're pretty skeptical, and we want to make sure the money's going to be spent in the way that people want it to be spent.
Let me ask you this question, Deb Peterson. So the Arch Tax editorials begins on Sunday in our hometown newspaper, Post-Dispatch.
That's right. It begins on Sunday, and we'll go a couple days in a week and conclude next Sunday, a week from this Sunday, with our endorsement or not endorsement. It will probably be an endorsement at this point.
Let me ask you this question. Has anybody leaned on you, questioned you, suggested anything to you in any way, shape, or form? So you're telling me, or that's my question, has anybody leaned on you to give one way or the other on this?
Oh, my gosh, no. I think we've leaned on them. We've been very aggressive. However, all of the powers that are involved have made time to answer every question. We've met with critics. We've met with supporters. We've really, we've met with them. No, there's been no pressure. I think at one time when, it was a family-owned newspaper, the Post-Dispatch probably would have had a bigger role in, participating in what's happening. But I think when you're owned by, as many of us are these days, you're owned by an out-of-state corporation, we don't put the civic push in the same way.
Right.
But, the paper's been very supportive in terms of giving us space. We're going to have a lot of graphics. And all of that is a commitment of another sort. So, no, but no pressure. Pressure,
All right, good. So it starts on Sunday, and
Sunday it's going to be called Beyond the River. At least that was the working title. It'll have a little bug, which in the newspaper industry means it'll have a symbol of some sort that will identify it as the Arch Series.
Right.
And we hope to answer questions and tell the public what we've learned.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Deb.
I'm excited at the idea of having somewhere down there that you can actually get to. It's not just looking at it from a window somewhere.
Great point. Deb Peterson, good work as always. We'll read it in the paper, and we'll talk to you next Friday.
Thank you, McGraw. Have a fun time in Cottleville.
Happy
Bye.
St. Patrick's Day. Deb Peterson.
You too.